Yeah, Mike.
Still have a very strong gun rights contingent in the state legislature, and you say that this respects gun rights. So what would you say to a Second Amendment supporter about how this respects gun rights?
Because there's due process built in. Because that a family member and law enforcement, they have to present evidence, and then a judge can grant that order. So there is due process, and this isn't something unheard of because there are people who are precluded from having guns currently. We know that someone, if they're a felon, if they've been adjudicated as mentally ill, there are reasons why you can't have a gun. And so what we're saying here is that at one point someone might have been qualified to purchase a weapon, but at this point over here we know that they shouldn't have a weapon, like what happened in Parkland with the shooter in Parkland. We need to figure out in the middle when we can temporarily seize their weapons and prohibit them from buying new weapons and get them the help that they need to try to prevent these tragedies. I don't know if anyone else wants to. Yes? Sure. So I'll speak on my behalf, and then on the Senate side, I'll let you guys speak. We did not have any Republican co-sponsors. Like we've said in other states, we've seen it has been bipartisan. But I've had a lot of different conversations with Republican House members that have said, we love what you're doing. You're on the right track. I think this is something that I would be actually, they said they will vote for it if it comes up for a vote, but they're not willing to co-sponsor the legislation. But I've talked to multiple Republicans who agree with what we're working on and will be supportive if given the opportunity.
Yeah, I'll just reinforce that. On the Senate side of the House, we've had the same experience. There are people there that will support this as it comes to the floor, and we'll keep working with them in advance of that to get even more support built up.
Sure. Yep. So they can go in. So they have to present evidence. So they can bring in whatever that evidence is, and then if the judge grants it, then they can either grant it if it's urgent. They can grant it ex parte so that they can get it done as soon as possible. Because obviously we want to try to help as soon as possible, and then they are compelled to bring that person in. So that they have their day in court as well. Because with this, if someone thinks they've wrongfully had their weapons taken away from them, we have penalties in place as well. Because we don't take this lightly. We know this is someone's Second Amendment right. We don't take this lightly. So there are penalties in place if someone's doing this frivolously or to harass someone. And we actually mirror that based on filing a false police report. We worked with actually the Republican sheriff of Oakland County is supportive of this legislation. And we worked with him to craft this. And so if you do it ex parte, you get it done right away, and then you bring them in. Otherwise, it's, as soon as you go in there, it's however long it takes through the court system. And we try to put, and actually in here in the language, that they have to put priority for this order. Sure. There are a few things different. The main thing I would say is we were more broad on who could initiate the order before. We narrowed that down to just immediate family members and law enforcement. So I would say that was the biggest thing. And then there was a bunch of kind of technical things that we worked on with attorneys to make sure, and worked on with law enforcement. So those are some of the changes I can go through with you afterwards as well. But those are a little more minor. I think that was the big change that we made from the other iterations of this legislation.
I'll just add, it is actually really important to us that law enforcement supports this. It has an impact on the Second Amendment rights supporters. That matters a lot. They recognize that they're being protected as long as we work together. And we really, truly are not trying to invade on anyone's rights, their Second Amendment rights. So working with law enforcement kind of helps ensure that from all sides.
And I think one other thing that you mentioned, there's also a difference in the political support. I think the conversation has shifted quite a bit. Unfortunately, it took a horrible tragedy in Florida, but the conversation has shifted because, in my thoughts are, because of the students that are speaking out across this country, that are making their voices heard. And so I'm inspired by them, and I think they're the ones that are getting out there between our Moms Demand Action, our moms group and our students. They're making their voices heard, and so that's why I think you've seen this pass in 11 states with bipartisan support, and why I think this year and this term will be different for us versus previous terms.